Are you streaming? I mean, like you got your camera up?
Yeah.
Oh. Did your URL change?
Shouldn't have.
Weird.
It's working over here for me.
Okay. Maybe it'll figure itself out.
Maybe just refresh?
Yeah, I did. It's okay.
Huh.
But I'm ready to go when you are.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, I've got the stream going. Shared it on all the usual spots.
Nice.
Let me pull up old Espen. And we should be ready to roll.
There's my iPad. Nice.
Hey, there you go. That might help you out.
Good news.
Woo! Mm.
Couldn't find it for a minute, and I was like, well, I guess I don't have an iPad tonight.
All right.
What?
We ready to roll?
Yep.
Let's do it to it. Man, oh man, playoff football rarely disappoints. We got another fantastic round this past weekend. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Booth Review. As always, I'm your host, Devin Primrose, joined by my brother from another mother, Mr. Blake Ivy. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Busy time in my life. I was working late, so if you're watching the stream, sorry I'm late. I'm not normally this late, but and then tomorrow is my daughter's 3rd birthday, so
yeah.
Libby turns 3, so that's pretty exciting. But busy. That's why I'm streaming in a dress shirt and no hat, which is very unusual. This is not our normal get up for
It is a
streaming.
weird look.
It probably feels very weird. That's like, why is he dressed like he's gonna sell me something?
Like, even just in like everyday life, I feel like it's a weird look seeing you in that.
Yeah, that's true. This is pretty much exclusively for Sundays. But I also went to the hospital and visited a couple in the church, had a baby, and so it was just like a boom, 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 like a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, how about you? How are things going, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Same old, same old.
Yeah.
Working, slinging some discs,
Slinging the discs,
watching football, man. That's what I do.
Ooh,
My life.
it's good football too. There's some really good football last week.
Yeah, some amazing football. We talked about how great the playoffs were last year, and we hope that this year would deliver the same. And looking at the schedule, this time last week, we were wondering just how good these games would be. Some of them looked like some real stinkers, and really, I mean, outside of, it started with a blowout. However, that game was close at the half. The Seahawks were actually winning that game at halftime. And then it ended with a blowout. But the 4 games in between, all delivered. Absolutely all delivered. Yeah, who you got for your best of the booth, man?
Best of the booth. Listen, as we have found out now, this guy is a big supporter of the show. We know because he was under review last week for me. And so he had to turn things around. He's got to. He was like, man, I really, I am under review. And so he put some things under review, went back to the lab, and Dak Prescott came out this week, 75% completions. I think it was 25 of 33, 305 passing yards, 5 total touchdowns. He listens. He's a fan. He's like, "Hey, I gotta do better for these white guys with beards. They need to see me do well." And dude, he absolutely did. I understand that it's against the losing record Tampa Bay Bucks, but they ended the season on a dud, and so it's like, "Hey, let's get it together." They lost to the Commanders. And so it caused you to doubt, I think a lot of people to doubt, "Hey, is this
Yeah.
team a team that can actually beat Tampa Bay in the playoffs?" Turns out, yep, they can.
Hey,
So, the best of the booth, it's got to go to Dak. I just think that he had such a stellar performance, 5 touchdowns coming off of his awful, awful week in
Yeah.
Week 18. It's just a great bounce back, especially since I had him under review last week. It's like, hey, I got to give credit where credit is due. 5 touchdowns, a fantastic performance.
Yeah, I've never been happier to have my pick go wrong. I picked the Bucks. I didn't like it,
Yeah,
didn't want to, but that's how bad the Cowboys looked in Week 18, and I definitely doubted them. I thought something was going on, and it wasn't just a Week 18 thing. They definitely had a couple of bad showings. You go back to the game against the Texans, where for whatever reason the Texans look like they're going to win in the fourth quarter.
yeah,
It's just worrisome things like that. But man, did they come out and prove me and a lot of other doubters wrong. They looked really good last night.
yeah, yeah, they did. And, I said this in the Discord that it's like, we got to watch out for the overreactions because it was against the Bucks, who
True.
are a losing record in the playoffs. Like, this is not a good football team. So we have to be careful when we're like, "Oh man, are they legit?" Because in reality, it was that they were playing against the Bucks. So like,
Yeah.
what else should we expect from them other than beating a bad team? Which, I mean, they lost to a bad team the week before, so who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
and they better be happy that their 4 missed extra points
whew,
didn't come back to bite them,
that was wild,
because
man.
I don't remember ever seeing that
No,
from a kicker. Something
no.
like he was in his head for sure.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't hear today that he lost his job. Like, I mean, I'm serious. Like,
I
you missed
know.
4 extra points. Like, he did redeem himself. He hit another extra point and hit a field goal, or hit right? He had an extra point and a field goal that he made after that.
It was just the one extra point, I
Just
believe.
an extra point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, crazy.
anyway,
Crazy. What's even crazy was Tom Brady had 66 pass attempts in that game, and they have 14 points to show for it.
yeah, we're don't worry,
66
we're
pass
not done talking
attempts.
about Tom. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. A
Spoiler alert.
little teaser for later. Well,
Teaser. What you got for your best of the booth?
I'll jump over to my best of the booth, and we're going from one NFC East quarterback to another NFC
Okay.
East quarterback. The nation now knows what some of us have known for a while. You, in particular, longer than most.
Thank you.
This was not Daniel Jones out there on Sunday.
It was
This
not.
was Danny Dimes
Danny
making
Dimes.
big plays all over the field. We've talked before about Dan Orlovsky having fantastic takes. This one I was a little miffed by. He said that Daniel Jones went from being a legit problem to a legit problem solver, and I like the second half of that. But Danny Dimes was never the problem.
Never the problem.
The problem was bad coaching. I've
Yeah.
said it before that bad coaching is the quickest way to ruin a young quarterback's future. And now it seems as if New York has finally found their coach of the future and Brian Dabble. So naturally, Danny Dimes has been unleashed. This was a monster game, and it set up a little bit of history, as no quarterback has ever had 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 70 yards rushing in a playoff game, which is kind of wild when you look at like the evolution of the mobile quarterback over the last 5 years or so. You would think that Josh Allen might have crossed that barrier at some point. Colin Kaepernick, I mean, he was certainly one of the first do it all kind of quarterbacks, 10 years ago. And Cam Newton, yes, especially a MVP season Cam 2016.
Yeah.
Like, you would think one of those guys would have done it, but nope. old Daniel Jones out of Duke. He's the first one, which is crazy to think about. But
QBU
yeah,
Duke.
this is how you make a statement in your playoff debut. And this Giants team looks good, man. I mean, they look
Right?
really good, really good.
Now let's keep in mind they were playing the worst pass defense in the
True.
NFL.
Yes.
So Daniel, again, it's easy to overreact, but
You're very correct about that.
playing the worst defense, it's only going to get harder from here. But I will say I'm pretty sure the Vikings' run defense is pretty stout. So that Saquon still is a factor moving forward. And he could be one of those guys that's just hard to slow down at all. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, Daniel Jones actually outrushed Saquon, which
that's crazy.
Is weird. I mean, yeah, he had 17 carries in that game for 78 yards. I want to say it was like 4.6 yards per carry, which is like pretty dang good.
Yeah. It was interesting to me, and maybe it's just because, most people don't watch play-by-play Giants games, me included. I was surprised by the number of, designed QB runs for Daniel Jones. I thought that he was more of a Josh Allen type where it's more scrambled, but it looks like they're using him more like a Jalen Hurts type quarterback where it's designed runs, it's reads, it's options. And so, yeah, I mean, they ran a QB power run where they had blockers out in front of him. Like you would think it was like a plan to get a 3-yard gain for a power back, and it was Daniel Jones back there. So
I wonder how much of that was game planning, watching the numbers that some mobile quarterbacks have put up against this Minnesota defense. Like you mentioned Jalen Hurts back there in the Eagles game. The Eagles versus the Vikings. I mean, that was a blowout, man. The Eagles dominated that game, and that was back in week 3, so obviously I don't remember what that offense necessarily looked like, but you would think that the mobility of Jalen Hurts probably influenced that. I know that Justin Fields had at least one good game against the Vikings, so I would think that had to have been a pretty big factor in their game plan to do that, because this is kind of a side of Daniel Jones that we haven't necessarily seen much of in the designed run aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know he's mobile. That's been a factor, and that's one thing that I've liked about him.
For sure, yeah.
Since he came into the league and won that job, is his mobility, and he's an accurate passer. That's what we saw on Sunday is he was throwing passes behind guys when they needed to be behind guys.
Yeah.
He was leading guys where they needed. He was throwing absolute darts. That my only throw that it's okay, that could be an issue was the throw that he had to I don't remember the wide receiver that he was targeting, but it was in the middle of the field on a 3rd and 8, and he hit him, and if the receiver had caught it, it would have been a first down. You remember that pass that the receiver just hit him in the chest and he dropped it?
Yeah, that was the one that was in the 4th, to where if he had caught that, that would have essentially iced the game, but instead they gave the ball back to the Vikings. Yeah.
Yes, that throw. So that one, to me, it looked like he should have put a little more touch on the ball. I remember hearing that Michael Vick used to do that. That it was he would just, it's dude, I'm just throw it. You don't have to throw it like I'm 40 yards down the field. I'm here. Just toss it to me. Especially in that moment, he wasn't trying to fit it in a window. If I remember, he wasn't super under duress.
No. And
the
guy was wide open.
Yeah. So you don't have to throw a dart at that moment.
Yeah,
I would like to see Daniel Jones be able to put some touch on those.
Yeah.
And that, especially in that situation. Now, again, I'm not a QB analyst that I've watched every play and can say, hey, he always does that. But in that pass, in that situation, that's what I saw was a guy who didn't put touch on a ball that needed touch.
Even then, though, I feel like if you're a wide receiver in the NFL and a ball hits you in your hands, you've got to be able to hold on to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, if I didn't mention it, Daniel Jones went 24 of 35, which is 68.5% completion percentage for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 carries, 78 yards. – What a playoff debut.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I'll go under review first, since we already kind of
Let's
teased
do
it
it.
a little bit. Under review. I'm going Tom Brady. Listen, if this is going to be his last game in the NFL, which I'm just hopeful it is, kind of. The other part of me wants him to come out and be so bad that he gets benched. Like, I would love to see that as well.
Yeah.
Seeing his downfall is great. But I want to throw him under the bus. I want to throw him under the bus. If it's his last game, he's going out under review. That's what he's doing. Uh, Tom Brady, supposedly, according to the people who like to talk about football, he's the GOAT. He's the greatest football player of all time.
I mean,
Uh,
he is. I mean, it's
well,
I don't like saying it, but he is.
maybe Adam Vinatieri has something to say about it.
He's the
Uh,
most accomplished quarterback. Can we at least agree on that? I mean,
okay, fine,
unfortunately, like he is.
fine. Yes, he rode the shoulders of many people to Super Bowls. Um, he is he completed 53% of his passes on, like you said, 66 attempts. They were throwing the ball way too much, in my opinion.
But
I
they've
mean,
done all year though.
I know they were down, but like my thing is he looked scared. Like he wasn't like he looked scared and old. He wasn't willing to take the hits. He was like, I'm just going to throw the ball. I mean, how many balls did we see him just throw at somebody's feet because he just wanted to get rid of it? He was like, I'm just going to throw this to
Yeah.
the ground at some guy's feet because I can't complete it and I'm not going to throw a pick. And there was the dumb end zone pick. Like he threw that pick in the end zone and honestly to me it looked like a noodle arm quarterback who was trying to throw the ball out of bounds and he couldn't get it there.
Yeah.
And it's just like he that defense was not good, and Dallas's defense is very good. So it doesn't all fall on Tom Brady, but when you have him throw the ball 66 times and he barely throws 50% completion percentage, like that was not playoff Tom Brady, what we saw
Right.
last night. Like by his standards and honestly by any quarterback standards, he was the worst quarterback of the weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, as far as like you look at like Skylar Thompson looked better than he did this weekend. Like then
Yeah.
that's terrible. Tyler Huntley looked better than he did this weekend. Um like you put either one of those guys, you put Tom Brady on either of those teams, any other team in these playoffs, and they probably do worse. And so
Yeah.
it's just like, especially that version of Tom Brady that we saw last night. Under review, Tom Brady. I hope you end your career under review. That's the real slap in the face. Career ended under review.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the telling number of his performance is QBR. You know, we've mentioned before QBR is on a scale out of 100, and he
Yeah.
had a 24.1 QBR.
Yeesh.
You look over on the other side of the field to Dak Prescott, who you had as your best of the booth, 96.5.
Yep.
96.5, which is the highest. I think the second highest was Brock Purdy. I think he had an 89 in his game, which
Mm.
Purdy could have easily been either one of our best of the booths also.
Yes.
He had I mean, that kid is an anomaly. To be the Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, and to look as good as he's looked. I'm excited to see him against a competent defense, and I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants are good, but I do hope the Niners get past the Giants, or not past the Giants. Who are they playing? They're playing the Cowboys. That's
Yeah.
right. Because I was going to say the Eagles, but the Cowboys have a competent defense, so that'll be interesting to see. And then if he gets past the Cowboys to the Eagles, that'll be even more interesting.
Well, I think the best defense in the NFC outside of the Niners is Dallas, especially after what I saw last night.
It could be. It's
like that.
The biggest problem with the Cowboys defense, and it's been this way all season, is it's so hot and cold. Like you have instances like last night where they come out firing and they look like monsters out there. And then you have, times like they did against the Commanders where it's like, is this the best defense? Like, are they really that good? And then the game against Jacksonville where the Jags put 40 points on them. It's like, is this really the best defense or one of the best defenses? It's just so hot and cold, and I'm hopeful that this Dallas team continues to look as good moving forward because one, that makes the matchup against San Francisco that much better, and two, if Dallas does happen to get past the Niners, they're such a far more interesting team when they look as complete as they looked last night.
Yeah.
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 My
That'll be interesting to see if Dallas can carry the momentum defensively forward. Yeah.
For sure. My under review is from another monster game of the weekend, and it's the Jacksonville LA game on Saturday night.
What a game, man.
It was quite a game, and it was impacted quite a bit by some bad penalties by a certain defensive player by the name of Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa was having a bad time out there.
He was big angry.
He had 3 penalties, 2 of which were pretty key penalties. In the middle of the third quarter, when Jacksonville was down 27-7 at the time, he had an offside penalty called that negated a 16-yard sack on 3rd and 7 and made it 3rd and 2. Jacksonville went on to score a touchdown on that drive instead of probably just kicking a field goal, which is technically 4 point. You gave Jacksonville 4 points there by that offside penalty. And that's, I mean, offside is a little tricky. I don't remember if he actually jumped early or if he was lined up offside. And that sucks. I mean,
to me, that's a mental error.
That is definitely a mental error. 100% a mental error. Later on in the third quarter, he had an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after yelling at a ref. Now that one was not as key. It was just 15 yards on the ensuing kickoff. That was on a 2-point try that Jacksonville did not convert, so it didn't technically hurt LA too much. But minutes later, he had a second unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after Trevor Lawrence threw his 4th touchdown pass when he threw his helmet off because he thought there was a false start or holding or a combination of both, which looking at the replay...
Which there was.
Looking at the replay, there was definitely holding. The false start's a little tricky. It's very simultaneous or close to being simultaneous. Neither one was called. The refs were pretty bad all night. So Bosa does have a complaint there. But that turned the 2-point try instead of 2 yards to just 1 yard, which Jacksonville then elected to try. They converted, and now it's just a 2-point game instead of what would have presumably been a 3-point game had the penalty not occurred, and they simply kicked the point after. Those are key penalties.
Yeah, and they had lined up for an extra point, and then, or like they had sent out the kicker, and then he did that, and they were like, well, might as well go for it now. And that's what it kept it from being an overtime game.
Yep, and Doug Peterson was actually asked if he would have still gone for 2 had the penalty not occurred, and he said probably not. We probably would have kicked, which makes sense because it's so much. Like, you don't think that 1 extra yard would make that big of a difference, but it does. To go from the 2-yard line versus the 1-yard line, the 1-yard line is a lot easier, and especially when you got a 6.5 foot quarterback. It seems like, I don't know how tall Trevor Lawrence is, but he's pretty dang tall. All he's got to do is lean over, which is what he did. He just held out his arm, leaned over, and that's the 2 points. So it definitely cost the Chargers.
Unlike Tyler Huntley, who cannot just
yes
lean over 2 yards. As we learned this past weekend. Oh man, I meant to put that. That's who I meant to have under review. I'm sorry. That's who I meant to have under review. I forgot about that. Honorary under review. And Tyler honestly, Huntley for thinking that he had 6-foot arms.
Yeah,
he's like 2 yards out. I can stretch this ball 2 yards.
Honestly, while we're talking about this Chargers Jags game, honorary best of the booth Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I couldn't do it because of the fact that he threw the 4 picks, but the mental fortitude that it takes to sit there and say, I'm playing this poorly. Let me figure this out and go out there and win the game. I mean, to go from throwing, I think he went 4 of 16 with 4 interceptions at one point early on, and he turned that around and threw 4 touchdowns in the second. Well, one of them was late in the first half, but 4 touchdowns to end the game, leading them down to a field goal kick to win it as the clock expired. I mean, hats off to him for that mental toughness.
Yeah, and listen, I also had already done a different under review before you told me your under review.
Oh yeah.
And originally, which now it makes more sense because the Chargers have fired their offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Devin, hypothetically, let's
Yeah.
say you're in a playoff football game and you get to be the one who's in charge of calling the plays. And let's hypothetically say you have
Let's fire the GM that did that first off.
Yeah, that's true. And then hypothetically, let's say you have the guy who scored more touchdowns than nope, not more touchdowns. The guy who had more scrimmage yards than anybody else in the league this year, in Austin Eckler. Is that right? Did I remember that? He's most scrimmage yards.
Probably. He had a really good season. I know that.
I mean, if not, close to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so hypothetically, you're up 27-0, and you have this guy on your team who's that good. What do you think that you would start doing?
Well, I would probably get the ball in his hand as much as possible.
Yeah, you'd probably think like, hey, let's hand the ball to this guy like a whole lot. We're up 27-0.
Or throw some dump passes out to him, maybe a couple screens, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he had 4 targets on the day. So like only tried to get the ball to him target like receiving.
Yeah.
He had 8 receiving yards on 2 receptions.
Yeah.
He had 13 carries for 35 yards, which is not great, but like I don't and there's Josh Kelly who he had 7 carries for 20 yards. So it's like you got 20 carries between the two of them, but like you're up 27-0. Run the football. Like what brand of stupid are you that you're like, you know what we should do? We'll just have Justin Herbert throw the ball 43 times. One of these quarterbacks was down 27-0 and he threw the ball 47 times. One of these quarterbacks was up 27-0 and he threw the ball 43 times.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that you would just say, you know what, we don't need to run the ball, even though Austin Eckler is one of the best yards from scrimmage guys in the league all year. Put the ball in his hands. Run some clock. I know that coming out of halftime it was 27-7. I get it. It's still a 20-point lead. That's a huge lead in the NFL. Run the football. I just it doesn't make any sense to me. I know it wasn't working, but it doesn't matter because the clock is on your side at that point. When the clock is not on your side, when you're throwing incomplete passes, that doesn't help you at all. So anyway, I mean, I know it's not even my under review. Like it was my first string under review, and then you were like Joey Bosa, and I was like, yeah, that's probably better. But like, run the ball, man. Run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, yours talking about the OC definitely makes sense. I do think though that we got to give some credit to the Jags defense. I mean,
for sure
down 27-0, and you keep going out there and making stops to give your team a chance. Without the Jags defense making the stops they made, there's no way Jacksonville comes back.
And that Jags defense in the fourth quarter looked different. Like the way that Jags defense started coming after you, it was like, whoa. This is not a game plan. This is dudes that are just hell-bent on getting game won.
So I think that goes back, because we watched this game together, and I told you at the time that, in my opinion, that a win like that is a Super Bowl run catalyst type win. To come back from being down 27-0, and I think what you're talking about goes back to that very point, that those dudes saw the opportunity and they weren't going to let up until they had it. They were, like you said, hell-bent on making dang sure that they won that football game because they saw it in front of them. And I think that there's something to be said about the momentum that is created from wins like this. And listen, spoiler alert for what we're about to get into in the picks. I really, really contemplated picking the Jags to upset the Chiefs.
Ooh.
We'll get into that, but I really contemplated it because of the way that this team looked coming back from being down 27-0. Getting in that deep of a hole is worrisome for any team, but the fact that they overcame that says, a ton about the state of that team.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the picks,
Yeah,
I'll give you our legit or counterfeit.
let's
Our
do it.
legit or counterfeit this week. I'm gonna throw this at you as in I didn't want to say it as like which underdog is most likely to win the Super Bowl because like you could go with the Bengals and it's like that they're barely an underdog. You could go
Right.
with the Cowboys, again, barely an underdog. Um, so I'm gonna pick the two that like don't belong, right? The Giants and the Jaguars, which are teams that like we didn't. Well, sorry, each one of us did pick them respectively to be here in this moment,
Yeah, we did.
but neither one of us have them in the Super Bowl. So,
Correct.
um, out of these two teams, and you got to consider the field, right? Like in the NFC, the Giants would have to overcome the Eagles and then the Cowboys and or 49ers. The Jags would have to overcome the Chiefs and then the Bengals and or the Bills. Which one is a legit Super Bowl contender and which one is counterfeit? Legit or
Oh,
counterfeit? Giants and Jags, you got to put them each in a category. Who is
that's
most likely to hold up the Lombardi out of those two teams?
oh. I think I'm gonna go Jags, and part of that is because I feel so. I felt like most of the year that the Giants are fraudulent, which that sounds worse than I intend it to be.
Right.
I think the Giants team is very good, but I don't think they are as good as their record indicates. I think there are definitely things to be worried about, although there was none of that showed up on Sunday against the Vikings.
Yeah.
But I think they had an easier path to victory in that game because of the fact that the Vikings defense is so bad, and they were able to make the big stops against the Vikings offense, but that defense couldn't stop them at all. They were able to do whatever they wanted to, and
Yeah.
that's more, in my opinion, more indicative of the Vikings defense rather than the Giants offense. And
Yeah.
I think that the Giants offense is going to look a lot different against this Philadelphia Eagles team coming up this weekend. The Jags, however, played a really talented defense, and not only like a really talented defense, but a pretty healthy, really talented Chargers defense. Asante
Yeah.
Samuel had 3 picks in that game. Three
Crazy.
picks. Joey Bosa, for all the mistakes he made, still had a decent game, putting
Yeah.
pressure on Trevor Lawrence. So they faced a far tougher opponent. Well, I say far tougher. They definitely faced the tougher opponent, in my opinion, and they were in a far worse position that they sure self-inflicted, but they were in a far worse position, and to come back from that, I think shows so much more. However, I think they definitely have the tougher path to the playoff, to the Super Bowl, because they're gonna have to beat the Chiefs and they're gonna have to beat either the Bills or the Bengals. But the Bills have looked a little suspect over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Uh, if they happen to get the win over the Bengals and the Jags meet them in the AFC Championship, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags win that game. It wouldn't surprise me. I think this game against the Chiefs will be the hardest game for the Jags if
Yeah.
if they go on a run. But I'm putting the Jags as legit, and I'm gonna say the Giants are counterfeit. The Giants moving on from the divisional round would
Right.
surprise me more.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like I part of me leans towards the Giants because it feels like an easier path to the Super Bowl. Like you've got your division rival in the Eagles, which is, you've got Jalen Hurts a little bit banged up.
Right,
And then division rivals, they just know each other so well.
right,
Um, and then you could potentially play another division rival,
yeah,
um, and a weak Cowboys team, or you face a rookie, you know, in Brock Purdy and the 49ers, which, like, in all honesty, could explode at any moment. Like that team
hmm
could implode because they're all leaning on this kid, and all it takes
true.
is him to have one bad game and they're done. Um, so like I tend to. So what? Here's where I'm going to agree with you. Is I agree with you that if I'm picking one of these two teams of which one is better, I would say the Jaguars are the better team out of these two
Right.
teams. Like, if they were playing each other, I would pick the Jags all day. I just think the Jags' path is a little bit more difficult
It
than
definitely
the
is.
Giants.
Yeah.
So I would probably go with the Giants being legit contenders to win the Super Bowl. Although, if the Giants get to the Super Bowl, I don't know that they could beat anybody that's coming out of the AFC.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if the Jaguars get to the Super Bowl, they've already probably done the hard part. But I'll
Yeah. I
probably go
mean,
with the as legit.
unless they have to face the Niners, I to me
Yeah,
the,
that's
the
true.
Niners are the best team in the NFC currently, and I think the Niners are pretty dang close to being just as good as the Chiefs or the Bills.
Oh, I think that the Niners and Bills are equal, and I think that the Eagles and Chiefs are equal. Like both of
That's
those,
fair. Yeah. Yeah.
like those four teams to me, you could put them in any order, and I would not disagree with you. Like
Yeah. I'm with
you
you.
were like, Eagles are the best team in football. I'd be like, okay. You'd be like, Chiefs are the best team in football. I'm like, fine, whatever. Yeah, all four of those are just so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm with you.
anyway, just a fun little thought experiment that, if there's an upset going to happen and one of these teams sneaks into the next round, could be pretty exciting.
It'd
Giants
be
Jags Super Bowl chaos season.
it would be it'd be a ton of fun. I,
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't want to see that happen because I want to see the Bills exercise their Chiefs demons.
Yeah.
That's really what I want to see in an AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
But if it's the Jags, I'll take it. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun. It's a good story.
It is.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the divisional round. We are into the second round of the playoffs, and I think it's time we get picky with it.
Getting picky with it. Getting picky with it. Getting picky with it. Getting picky with it.
Hey man, there's only 7 games left in the NFL season.
That's
That's it.
wild, man. It just
7
ends
games.
so quick.
It does. It feels like it takes a while, and then it just all of a sudden ends. Like the playoffs
Sure.
go so quick.
Yeah.
We're used to those 2-month-long NBA playoffs.
It's like a fuse to a firework. You've got the long burn of the fuse, and
Yeah,
then just
yeah.
bang, and it's over.
But hey, if we get good games on the way there, I'm here for it.
Oh yeah.
And I think we've got a good one cooking up on Saturday.
I'm just gonna preface. I want to preface this entire segment by saying I feel like this is gonna be really boring. Like our picks, not the games.
Probably. I
think
feel
our
like
picks are gonna be
I
boring.
feel like our picks are all going to be the same.
Yep.
And the way it lines up is probably pretty predictable.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. Starting us off at 4:30 over on NBC, we get the Jacksonville Jaguars heading up to Arrowhead to take on the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs coming off that first round bye, 8.5-point favorites at home at Arrowhead. Like I said, I really contemplated picking the Jaguars. Part of me really wants to because I think it's the better story. I think the Jags actually have a legit chance. The fact that they're 8.5-point favorites, I could see them covering that pretty easily. Now, I could also see them getting blown out by like 16 or 17 points because the Chiefs are that good.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening based off of what they showed me in the first round. I feel like I said, that type of win, that is a type of signature win that teams use to motivate themselves on a run to a title.
Yeah.
And I could really see it happening with this Jacksonville squad. I think there's a lot of good pieces there on both sides of the football. I think they have a fantastic head coach in Doug Pearson. What a hire by that front office to bring in
Yeah.
Doug Pearson after the awful season they had last year. And I honestly, I just don't want this big cat magic to end. However, I see it happening on Saturday afternoon, and I'm picking the Kansas City Chiefs. I just can't. I can't bet against Patty Mahomes and company, man. They're too dang good. But who you got, man?
Yeah, it's David and Goliath. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You've got
Yeah.
the 10-foot tall Patrick Mahomes that
Yep.
he's an absolute monster. In terms of experience, talent level, popularity, like I would say Patrick Mahomes is the biggest name in football outside of Tom Brady. Like
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is the
Yes.
biggest name in football left in the playoffs. Like he's
Yep.
the face of the NFL. Like and for the Jaguars to be new kids on the block trying to come into the toughest stadium to play in the league.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough task. I almost think that is a tougher task than coming back from being down 27-0
Could be. Could be.
against the Chargers. I just yeah, this Chiefs team is too good. This is a top 4 team in the NFL to me. I don't see a way that the Jaguars. I mean, yes, could it happen? Yes. But I
Sure. Yeah.
don't see it happening. And I think that we probably see more of the first half Jaguars. I don't know that we see those 4 turnovers. And I said this in the Discord too. Even watching that game when it was like, oh man, there's no way. I was never impressed with what the Chargers were doing on offense. That offense never
Right.
looked
They
dangerous
got a
to me.
lot of lucky breaks by the bad turnovers. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that I don't see that happening with the Chiefs. Like I think to me that was more of the Chargers offense sputtering
Right.
than the Jags defense playing spectacularly. That's not to take anything away from the Jags defense. I think
Right. For
this is a
sure.
really good defense, but I think that it was more of lackluster offense from the Chargers, and you're just not like lackluster offense is not something you're going to see from the Chiefs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to this matchup, I don't think the Jaguars have the offense that can keep up with what the Chiefs are going to do.
Yeah. I'm with you. I do feel like there's so much about this Jags team that it's just like it's a little too early for y'all. You know,
Yeah.
like you guys are set up well for the future. But it's just not like the future isn't quite there yet.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what we said about the Bengals last year.
That's
Like
true. That's
the
true.
Bengals were sitting in this situation and we're like, I mean, not yet, Bengals, and then they did it. So I don't know.
And like they had a somewhat similar run. I mean, you look at that game against, I think it was the game against Tennessee where Burrow was sacked 9 times. 9 times. Like, I mean,
Yeah, that's
that's
true.
another like
Kind of that
you're facing some adversity. You know.
Yeah, that's fair. It could be a good comparison.
I just want a good game. That's really, I mean, that's what I want from all these games, but that's what I want from this one in particular because I don't want to see the Goliath come out and just pummel David.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like put up a fight. You know, hit Goliath with a couple pebbles. You know,
Do something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hit him a couple times at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Well, let's head up to Philadelphia for the nightcap on Saturday. Over on Fox at 8:15, we have the aforementioned New York Giants heading into Philadelphia to face a division rival, a divisional foe that they have played twice this year. They know each other well. They're facing the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly, 7.5-point favorites. I think that's fair. I could argue this should be higher, but the Giants just put up a show on Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
They have a much tougher task against this Philadelphia Eagles team. Again, it's interesting the NFL put both these games on Saturday because they're very similar to where you have the, metaphorical David going up against Goliath. And again, I think Goliath's probably just going to be too good, and that's why I've got the Eagles winning. Who you got, man?
Yeah, I don't know that this is as lopsided as that other game, just because this is Jalen Hurts' first like real shot at a postseason run. I know he had last year, but I think they got bounced in the first round, right?
Yes, I think so.
I don't remember them being like a real threat. And then the Giant to me it's just a bunch of unknowns, like this Eagles team is completely different from the last time we saw them be um a force in the playoffs, because this was an Eagles team that was mostly defense. That Eagles team, when they won in 2018, it was a defensive minded team that Nick Foles was able to come in and kind of just game manage and win a
Right.
Super Bowl. This Eagles team they've still got a good defense, but they are an offensive juggernaut that it's really hard to stop Jalen Hurts and what he does on the read option.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're listening to the podcast, do yourself a favor, okay? If you're listening before you watch the game, watch how he reads the defense. It's fascinating. It makes the game so much more fun when you watch him read the defense, because I'm pretty sure they run a read option almost every single play. And so to watch him watch the defense and where he decides to put the ball, you will rarely see him make a wrong decision. And it's super interesting to watch somebody cerebrally dissect a defense. At least to me, I love it. Sorry, but yeah, I've got the Eagles in this one. I don't think the Giants have the defense to slow down the Eagles' offense, but they could have an offense that can keep up somewhat. I could
Yeah.
see them trailing by double digits and just not being able to keep up quite the pace, because they don't really have the receiving threats to help Danny Dimes out. But they've got Saquon Barkley. Maybe Saquon can get a decent game going on the ground. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm with you that I want to see it be close. And big Danny Dimes fan for whatever reason. I like him. So I don't know why.
Yeah. I could see this game being, potentially one possession in the fourth quarter if everything's going right for the Giants. But like you said, it could also very easily be two possession, 10 point type game,
Yeah.
or more. But I'm hopeful for a good game. That's why I want to see the Giants and the Jags both be in a position to where the game is not lost. To where if things go right for them, they could still find a way to win those games late. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what happens, because that's what makes for good playoff moments when guys step up and make plays, and win the games. So that's what I'm hoping for. But let's go over to Sunday, 3 p.m. on CBS. We have the game that we should have seen a couple weeks ago. The game that we saw a little bit of a glimpse of before all things changed. But we have the Cincinnati Bengals heading up to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be a very emotional game.
Yeah.
And hopefully that means good football. Hopefully these two teams come out hungry and ready to fight. Buffalo 5-point favorites at home. I could see it being close, man. I think these are two of the powerhouses in the AFC, not just the AFC, but in the NFL in general, and two teams that should be powerhouses for a while. I love both of these teams, and I hate having to pick one of them, but I'm rolling with the Bills because I think the Bills are, as we've said, one of the best teams in football. Certainly one of the most complete. And I think the Bengals, they're just a step behind. I don't like we talk about the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals being like the big three of the AFC. And while that is true, I feel like the Bills and Chiefs are pretty much like 1A and 1B, and the Bengals are just right there, just right behind. There's a noticeable, slightly, but noticeable difference between these two teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, like they're like the Cowboys to the 49ers and Eagles.
Yes. But it's like, hey, listen, that's still a good team. It's still a team that could go win a Super Bowl this year or next year. But if I'm having to pick between them, I'm going with the Bills. But who you
Yeah.
got, man?
Yeah, I do think that's interesting that there is such a mirror image of each one of these teams in the opposite division. You've got the 13-win 49ers and the 13-win Bills. You've got the 12-win Cowboys and the 12-win Bengals. You've got the 14-win Chiefs and the 14-win Eagles. You got the 9-win Jags and the 9-win Giants. It's just
Yeah.
very interesting that you have the mirror to each other.
Yeah.
You've got these top two, and then this third one that's kind of like the kid brother tagging along, and then you've got the baby brother that might be able to sucker punch somebody and get a knockout. Anyway, sorry, there was a whole rant for basically no reason. The Bengals defense is what worries me. And their offense.
Yes.
On against the Ravens, they were one defensive end running 98 yards with a fumble away from losing that game. That was it. Like that moment is what lost the game for. Otherwise, like if Tyler Huntley just does a normal QB sneak, we could be sitting here talking about how great it is that the Ravens are here. But instead, you have a dumb decision made by a backup quarterback, and it cost them the game. There's a I guess a 14-point swing because it went from 7 one way to 7 the other way.
Right. Yeah.
So, that makes me a little concerned about the Bengals. Although again, you've got they had just played. It's a division rival. But all that to say, I've got the Bills. I'm going to be rooting for this Bills team. I want them to win a Super Bowl for the city of Buffalo, for Josh Allen.
Yes.
For Jim Kelly. Like we throw it back to the 90s. Like I want them to win it for this franchise.
Yeah.
And so I think that I might be picking a little bit with my heart, but I also think with this one I'm picking with my head on taking the Bills over the Bengals here.
Yeah. No, I mean I'm with you in both areas. Like this is the team. Did you pick the Bills last year to win the Super Bowl?
I think I did.
I know I did, and that's like this is. I feel like I've been picking the Bills for like 3 years now. It's like this is the team that I want to see get it done, and I'm hopeful that this will be the year. But it's not just like it's not just like the love I have for that team because I also love the Lions. But I'm not picking the Lions to win a Super Bowl because they're not there yet. This Bills team is there, and they've been there. And while that window is still open and looks to be pretty open for the foreseeable future, that window could close at any point.
Yeah.
If Stephon Diggs decides, hey, you know what? It's my time to hang it up. That's a big blow. If Josh Allen goes out and gets a career-altering injury, that's a big blow. Like things like that. Obviously, I'm not wishing that to happen to this Bills team, but it's a possibility. Look at the Colts from 3 or 4 years ago when Andrew Luck all of a sudden in the preseason says, hey, I'm done. Like that was a good Colts team that a lot of people said, oh, with the healthy Andrew Luck back, like this is a team that could make some noise potentially, and they've been in quarterback purgatory since then because that's like a franchise altering move, and it can happen. It can happen, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Andrew Luck. I respect the kid making decision to put his health above anything football related. That is obviously paramount to anything else.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this Bills window, while it looks open, could close at any point. And I want to see them. I want to see them go out and get this Super Bowl while the opportunity is still there. So, I'm with you, man. I just want it for those fans so bad. They have one of the best fan bases in football, and they've seen so much disappointment, especially going back to the 90s when they lost 4 in a row, and that's unheard of. So, time to get over the Kansas City hump, get to the Super Bowl, and go win the thing.
Yeah, man.
Let's finish off divisional round weekend, 6:30 p.m. on Fox on Sunday. We have the Dallas Cowboys heading out to take on the San Francisco 49ers. And man, I tell you what, after Monday, this matchup looks a lot more juicy and spicy.
Tickets as low as $432. If you got
Yeah.
half a grand lying around, you could be there.
Listen, I've heard from a lot of Cowboys fans over the years that there's two teams that they do not like, and it is the Packers and it's the Niners, and it's because of the history amongst those three teams in the NFC always facing each other in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to be a very, very good matchup, very good game, and I'm excited for it. Currently, the Niners are 4-point favorites. I think a lot of that is because they're the home team. This is the way to end a divisional round. I'm hopeful that it's a good game. I don't want to curse it by hyping it up and then it falls flat, but I don't think that will happen. I'm excited to see, like I mentioned earlier, Brock Purdy against a competent defense like this Dallas Cowboys defense. Interested to see what he can do. Interested to see if the hype continues or if the rookie mistakes start coming out and showing themselves. But I've got the Niners. Part of me wants to go Cowboys just for the parity, but I've got the Niners. I think that we're gonna get a 1 seed versus 2 seed matchup in both the AFC and NFC championship games. Who you got, man?
I had one thing written, and I
Yeah.
changed it before you made your pick. So
Yeah.
don't think that it influenced me. So I'm sitting here thinking about how cool the storylines are. I don't know how Brock Purdy is going to handle going up against such a ferocious defense
Yeah.
in the Cowboys. And then I remembered. Who's somebody that would know Kyle Shanahan's offense really, really well?
You make a good point.
The old head ball coach that Kyle Shanahan outmaneuvered into getting to be a head coach. And that head ball coach is now a defensive coordinator and is a defensive coordinator that is maybe the hottest commodity in the coaching carousel right now. I know he's lined up to interview for the Broncos, and I saw one other one. There's another head coaching vacancy that he is lined up to interview for, and that's Dan Quinn. You've got a guy that is very familiar with how Kyle Shanahan runs his offense. He knows what kinds of things he likes to do. He knows how creative he can be. And he's got some of the best defensive weapons at his disposal. And I don't know, man. I just can't make it be a 1 seed versus 2 seed, 1 seed versus 2 seed in the championship games. So, I'm going to take the Cowboys.
All
I'm
right.
going to do it. I'm going to say that they're going to use this last week as their momentum slingshot. Dak Prescott has hit some kind of new playoff mode that we ain't seen before. And I think maybe he can continue to do it. The run game of the Cowboys, the defense, I think that might be what throws Brock Purdy off, is seeing a defense like the Cowboys and their creativity, their ability to rush the quarterback from both interior and outside. It could be the thing that frustrates him, gets him off his mark, gets him to try to do too much, and we see him make some rookie mistakes. So I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, because why not? Hey, chaos season might as well end with some chaos, especially because right now all the media are talking about how good the Niners are. Are the Niners the best team? Are the Niners stoppable? They're the best. They got 33 points per game this season, and they have the highest turnover differential. I saw Marcus Spears talking about it today on the Four Letter Network.
Yeah.
So is maybe it's time for the tower to fall. And it's the pride of the 49ers. And also, I'm kind of always going to root against Kyle Shanahan. So I like Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn was never a jerk. He was a good guy. And, yeah, I like Dan Quinn. So let's go Cowboys, I guess. Ugh, that feels gross
Yeah.
to say.
How does that feel to say?
I don't like it a bit. Don't like it a bit. But either way, I just want to see a good game. And I know I'm picking the upset and I could be taking a loss, but just maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this is a good game to take the upset on. Like this is a in my opinion the closest to a coin flip game of the weekend. Um even
This one in the Bills Bengals.
I was going to say for even as good as the Bills Bengals matchup should be and as close as it should be, I still lean towards the Bills. This one is very even for me.
Yeah.
I do think the Niners are the better team. I think the last 12 weeks indicates that they are. They are 11-0 over the last 11 games, including the game against Seattle
Yeah.
in the playoffs. They went from a 3-4 team to being an absolute juggernaut in the NFL over the last 12 weeks or so. Brock Purdy is 6-0 as a starter, 7-0 playing as their quarterback in place of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what that team does in the offseason with the quarterback position. I think they are one in a perfectly good spot, probably the most enviable spot of any team in
The
the
literal
NFL.
opposite of the Jets or the Panthers.
100%. I mean, the Panthers have three quarterbacks on their roster, and flip a coin, they're all going to do the same thing. These guys are all. I mean, between Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy, I think any of these three guys could go to any team in the NFL
You got three
and
starters.
be a starter. Yeah. So they're in a very good spot moving into the offseason. This defense has played incredible over this 11 game run. They've had 3 games where they allowed more than 17 points. 3 games over an 11 game stretch where they allowed more than 17 points. One of those was 20 points to the Commanders, a game that they ultimately won 37-20. One of those was on Saturday to the Seahawks, a game in which they won 41-23. And one of those, which is the weirdest one, was to the Raiders, which they won 37-34. That's kind of the outlier. But I think this defense is playing some fantastic ball. And I think they're going to make life difficult for Dak Prescott and Zeke and Tony Pollard and those boys back there.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for a good game, man. I'm hopeful for a good game, just like the rest of the games this weekend.
Yeah, I would really expect a low-scoring game from this
I could
Cowboys
see it.
49ers.
I could see it
Yeah.
being.
It does have the lowest line of the week at 46.5. I would take the under. I would be surprised if both of these teams score 20 points. I could see this being like
17-13.
Yeah, 17-13 kind of game. So
Yep.
maybe even 17-14 game-winning field goal to win it, which
Yeah.
that would be a redemption story for that Cowboys kicker who missed 4 extra points. Game-winning field goal to go to the next round.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, it looks like we've got some good football on the horizon. Like I said, man, 7 more games. We got 4 this weekend, 2 next weekend, and then we get the big one second week of February. It'll be here before we know it. But as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for hanging out. Go ahead and click that subscribe button and follow us. We have various socials across the interwebs. Follow at your own risk. The only one that I'm going to overly plug is the Discord, as I always do. Hop into it. Come discuss the games with us this weekend as they're happening in real time, because that Discord is always going off when there's football on the TV. But as always, we love you. We appreciate you. We thank you for listening and supporting us and tuning in. And I think that's that.
That's that.